Awesome. So we're going to kick things off. Thanks for coming out to Dash. So I'm super excited about this session. It's an idea that I've had because culture really shapes how we develop software. Whether you want to believe it or not, like how you engage as engineers and engineering leaders, technical leaders, obviously like that permeates everything that you do. And it does the same for us at Datadog. So this year I got involved with one of our ERGs, or what we call community guilds at Datadog. Being Asian American, I found that there's a bunch of other folks around, and it's really impacted how I think of the company. So I wanted to bring up a bunch of folks to talk more about what we do at Datadog and what those community guilds look like. I'm going to introduce our first person and let her take the show from here, but Mayumi Worgotter in the middle here is our Senior Director of Comms at Datadog and DEI. So all of the programs, including the ERGs that we run, kind of are under her purview, and she helps shepherd those. So with that, give a warm welcome to Mayumi, and then I'll let her introduce everybody else.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate that. And that's such a wonderful, when we think about the work that we're doing, it's wonderful to hear these employee testimonies. I did not plug that. I did not request for him to do that. So thank you, Jason. Mayumi Worgotter, I use pronouns she, her. I lead internal communications and DEI at Datadog. And because of that role, I have an incredible gift of being able to work with some of these folks that are up here and the roles that they represent. And I'll talk a little bit more about what our panel is going to be about. But first, I'd just love for us, I'll start at the end here, introduce yourself, the work you're doing, and then, of course, your CG affiliation.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name's Amber Bennoui. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a product manager on our security platform, but I am also a co-lead of Women of Datadog, and I've been at Datadog for about 3 years now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam. I go by he, him, his pronouns. I'm a software engineer on the event management team working with our AI ops. And I'm also a member of the Rainbow Dogs Committee, which is the CG related to our LGBTQIA2+ Datadogs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Young. I am a technical sourcer on our fantastic recruiting team here. I'm also a co-lead for our Black and Technology Community Guild, and I've been at Datadog for just a little over 2 years now.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Mitchell. I use pronouns he, his, him, and I am one of the VPs of engineering at Datadog. I'm also the executive sponsor for our Parents and Guardians group.
Awesome. Thanks so much, one, for taking the time. I know many of you are actually actively working in Dash right now, so thank you. And I appreciate that we are making the space, not just Datadog. I didn't have to kick and scream to ask to be on this panel or to make space on the agenda. And I didn't have to ask all of you to attend. You made the point to come here out of your day to listen and talk about something that hopefully is something that's important to you as well. So thank you for doing that. And when we think about employee resource groups, as they call them, or ERGs, we know according to some studies, about 90% of Fortune 500 companies have implemented them as a way to support diverse staff members and to help foster inclusion. So we're going to talk about the cultural value that these ERGs are adding to companies. As Jason mentioned, at Datadog, we call them community guilds, or CGs. So if you hear us use that nomenclature, it's just because it's a little intuitive to us. But we're all talking about the same thing. So as we think about employee resource groups and how they show up across various organizations, they're typically voluntary and they are driven by employees for employees. So I wanted to ask, and this is really open for anybody, what motivated you to raise your hand and say, I actively want to get involved either as a leader or as a committee member?
Yes, I can start with that. So first of all, Datadog is one of the largest companies I've ever worked for. And whenever you join a large company, I think one of the best things to do is find your community, whether it's an interest group or a hobby group or a guild that you can start with and grow your network, build your personal brand within the organization. Subsequently, I've always been really interested in DEI. A lot of companies I've worked with in the past, a lot of organizations I've volunteered for in the past, DEI is the main thread within all of those groups. So finding something at Datadog at that scale, I think was a really exciting opportunity. I joined it because I felt that it was a really good way to meet other people like me, figure out what their perspective is, and hopefully drive towards, better culture, better environment, better change, but also very quickly get your bearings, right, in a company that large. So Women of Datadog has helped with that, but I've also been a member and been involved with a lot of other guilds, and it's just been great for feeling not so small in such a big company.
Totally get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just echo a few things that Amber said. Like, I've worked at companies where I felt supported, especially as a parent, and sometimes where I haven't felt as supported. I think like part of our job as leaders too is to make sure that we're creating this safe space, we're creating this support group, right, in this area where people can feel like they belong. And so I think it's just like, it's a great opportunity too to meet people across the company, but also to share and given all the time we spend at work, to actually be able to relate to people and understand like, hey, they're going through similar challenges or they have some of the same experiences that I do. So.
I actually initially got involved with the CG 2 years ago as a member, and then transitioned to the co-lead role last year. But I think my motivations are still the same in that I had worked at past companies and even thinking about college. This community specifically for me, for Black and African Americans, was always present, and it meant a lot to me, I think, in any context to know that space was there, know that community was there if I needed them in good times or bad times. And so to be able to be someone who is continuing to champion that at Datadog felt like something important to me, and was really excited to be able to raise my hand.
Oh, well, we're super glad you all did. And Sam, you joined us as an intern last summer, and I think you participated in our CGs. And then you came back and joined us, and then joined our committee. So I'm really curious about your motivation and how it's been for you as a return Datadog.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back just a little under 2 years ago when I was an intern, I was floored when I came to Datadog and felt the warm welcome that I felt. I think stepping into this role as my first full-time role out of college, being my full self at work was very, very important to me. I wanted to feel comfortable going in day to day and knowing that I could share myself with my coworkers in that way. And I actually remember a moment that I want to share back when I was first an intern. It's my first time meeting Mayumi, actually, and I was walking past her in the cafeteria, and I was wearing these pearls that I was wearing right here. Sometimes I get nervous about what I wear to the office, like, should I be more professional? Should I express myself in small ways? And I wore these, and she actually complimented me on them. She's like, oh, like, nice pearls. And it's small.
And I meant it, because I love a strong accessory.
Yeah, and I felt nervous wearing them actually that day. And so when I got that compliment and I had that moment where I felt seen and I felt comfortable expressing myself like that, it felt like a door was opening where I could really see myself coming back to Datadog. And now that I have, being involved with the CG has been really fulfilling because I can help create that space where people are stepping into it and feeling like they can express themselves in whichever way they feel comfortable to do so too.
Oh, I love that. I appreciate that story. And again, I did not plant that story to make myself sound amazing and supportive. But I think that touches on an important part is when we think about how we show up for work and when we are best equipped to deliver high quality work. We feel good in our roles. There are certain environmental elements that support that, right? Feeling like you belong, feeling like you're seen and you're valued. You can be your authentic self. So I'm curious, anyone who wants to share, how that has shown up for you as part of your work with the ERGs.
I mean, I'm happy. Like I do think I think having the community that we have and just knowing we have the support, like from our leadership as well as like our individual teams, you're more likely to take risks, right? And a lot of times I think at least we're thinking about what's a reasonable risk we can take to, make a better product or do a particular type of work. And if you feel like you're supported in your company, in your group, especially like someone with kids and you're having to like think about time off or how you balance work and life, I think you're more likely to give just more effort overall. You're more committed to the work. You care more about it too. I think those are all like really important aspects to liking your job, right? So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think Sam's story I like that moment of connection, and I think like CGs or ERGs are a very intentional space to create those connections, because as an intern or what have you, being able to be seen by someone who's a director or a VP, and not that leveling is always the most important thing, but it just, those moments of authenticity, from someone that you weren't expecting it. Like, it's those things that make you want to come back full time, or make you want to keep working here for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to feel sometimes like the only, right? And it's not even tied to like underrepresentation of how you look like or how you identify, right? There can be personal aspects about yourself where you really just feel like, am I the only one who's going through this? So there's a level of just human connection and understanding where you're like, oh, okay, I'm not. And I'm, this is maybe a safer space for me to express myself, share my ideas, connect on that human level, because as much as we want to be like heads down work, at the end of the day, we're humans, and there's so many elements of us of what we're bringing through the door every day. So I appreciate all of that. So let's talk about the impact. Each of you have been working with your community guilds or ERGs for some time now. What's some of the impact that you've seen firsthand from the work that you've done?
I can start. So I have been the co-lead for Women of Datadog for about a year now. When I first joined Datadog, I was a member. And so I went from, really reaping the benefits of having that community, really being able to quickly meet a lot of people across a very global organization, to being in the hot seat and having to figure out how I can pay some of that back and some of that forward. And so there's a lot of impact, and I look at it in a couple different ways. So one is internal impact, fixing that sense of belonging, right? If you go to work and it just feels like work, then, that's not a place that I would personally want to be. And so with the different community guilds, it really has added like a different touch, a je ne sais quoi, if I may. I'm gonna pull the French out, but no, it really did shift the perception of, hey, like, I'm not just logging into work, I'm like coming and helping build something bigger. And so I've helped and have seen firsthand Women of Datadog partner with some of our mentorship programs. I've seen many women as part of the Women of Datadog committee get promoted and get recognition that used to be really hard to quantify, used to be hard to know where to go if you needed more help. So helping put more structure around that has been one of the most rewarding things about me being here at Datadog. On the other side, I don't look at community guilds just as what you can do within the company. I look at it from the perspective of what you can do in the community, what you can do with your customers, what you can do for efforts that maybe are much smaller, but a brand like Datadog can come in and help and supplement and proxy and enhance. So I'll just throw out a couple things, and I want to give some time back for other folks to answer. But we've done sales events. We did a woman in cybersecurity event last month in Chicago. It was so cool. It's like something I dreamt of doing for years, and Datadog made it possible. And we brought in really, really cool folks from other cybersecurity companies, other companies that are customers, and I was really able to build connections. Like, I still talk to some of the folks I met there on a regular basis. So just being able to find that community and being able to grow both inside and out has been one of the most rewarding impacts for me.
And I want to give Amber a shout out too. When she was on our committee last year, talking about impact, thinking about how do you impact belonging, right? Which is a feeling, it's a sentiment, it can change. And Amber's like, I will show you. Here's the OKRs that I've created. And I was like, thank you. And also, yes, let's do this. So I love that you were able to action on it using, the work that you were already doing and how you apply and you project manage and you attack a problem and build a solution. So thanks for that. Anyone else?
I really want to add to that of like adding your own flair to how you're going to approach the sense of belonging. I think that it's so important that it comes from the community itself, and that leaders within your companies are providing tools to the community to really create that space. And I feel like, being someone who has joined Datadog full-time for less than a year, within just the past amount of time that I've had, I feel like I've been given the tools to do so much, even just in my time here. creating cross-functional meetings where I'm able to connect with people all across our CG and allies included. I know so many more people across the company that can teach me so much about Datadog that I still don't know, being so early on in my career. And so now I have a friend that's over in this department and over on this engineering team, and I can reach out to them, and there's someone that I feel even more comfortable asking some of those harder questions too. So I think the power of how it really unlocks, especially from an early career perspective, your ability to connect and reach out to these people cross-functionally is immeasurable. And even externally to your customers as well. Today at Dash, I actually connected with the customer and they said, hey, I think I saw a spotlight from Rainbow Dogs on Instagram. Are you involved with the guild? And then they asked me how their company could get involved with Datadog to do more potential events or connect with Datadog on that lens. And that was such an organic moment, and it was special. And I said, yeah, like let's talk about it. And so I think that unlocking the way that we can connect with our customers and connect with other people and spread that sense of community beyond just Datadog is also something that I look to foster more. So I guess this is my spreading that out into the universe now.
Find him on social media, folks. Anyone else want to share their impact that they've seen?
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
just maybe bouncing off of Sam, like I think community guilds are also a space for empowerment. I think I've seen it for myself as someone who I wasn't doing the kinds of things or running the kinds of programs that I am now in my role that I was doing last year. And I think it's an opportunity for really anyone across the company, across levels, to raise their hand and, you know, be empowered to run with something and try it. And maybe it fails, but that's just a data point. And so it's just been a really great space.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, I think everyone's covered like a good portion of what we see as the benefit, right? I mean, I think having that internal network is huge. Being able to have that support, especially like as you're coming into a new company and feeling like you belong and having resources to go to, like, and these are all beneficial things, not just for employees, but you know, for us, like going to work every day and spending time with these people. Like, I think it's great, right? I mean, it's like it's a valuable thing for us to invest in our own time as well as like the company as a whole. So.
Yeah, and David, you and I had chatted about it. So David is supporting as our executive sponsor, so VPs and above who show up for these communities as self-identifying members, and they're really helping to guide our co-leads and members on programming, overcoming obstacles, escalating ideas. But something that you were kind of excited about was like, this is our new generation of leaders that we're also helping to stand up there, and you get to mentor them essentially.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the additional benefits. It's like I can also, it's kind of like training wheels, right? I can be part of this. It's something I care about. I know something about it. Like, I'm an expert in it already. I don't have to. It's not, you know, something that I have to learn technically. And yet they can also have an opportunity to figure out, like, well, how do I organize this group? Like, what are the things they care about? You know, how do I go about getting funding for different activities, that type of thing. And I think it's a great opportunity. It's also something that, you know, there's not like a lot of pressure. I think especially in the parents and guardians, like, it's a very supportive group. It's very comfortable. Like, people can mess up and that's okay. You know, and it's also something that's not forced. So we try to get different people to come in and hold that role for some period of time as well. So I think that's great too. Yeah.
That's such a parenting thing. It's like, it's okay if you mess up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what you say to your kid. Like, what did you learn from it, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
that's the same lessons that we're applying to our co-leads and our communities. I would love to save some time to talk about how the ERG experience has like supported you personally in your own development. So we touched on that you're growing your leadership skills, communication skills, project management, in addition to the work that you're already doing. But would love if anyone wants to share about how you've kind of seen it impact your own development and growth.
Sure, I guess I can start. So, you know, my day job, I'm a product manager, as you know from the OKRs. But I'm also very customer facing. I do a lot of conferences. I do a lot of events. I work with large groups of people, trying to drive them towards like a good solution, a path forward. So, you know, the Women of Datadog experience has been great. Like I said, it introduced me to some amazing folks in leadership at the company. So my executive sponsor is our SVP of Customer Success. Angie Holt, she is amazing. I look up to her. It's like one of the first times that I'm like, oh wow, I want to be that one day. And I get to work with her, and I get to learn a lot from her in terms of how to manage as in your priorities as an executive, communication framework. And so at that level, I'm getting a glimpse into what it's like to be an executive, right? Dave, I'm sure your life is as a VP. I don't envy it, but hopefully that's something I can drive towards someday. So that's been really rewarding from that perspective, having access to somebody that you might want to be, but having a common goal. It's not just like you're saying hi to them in the hallway. No, you're driving towards OKRs. You have accountability of things that you need to do there. That's helped me with Women of Datadog. It's helped me in my professional role and in my personal role in terms of focusing on what I want to get towards. As a PM, product manager, I'm also customer facing. So in my role, just like Sam mentioned, we have a lot of potential prospects, customers, partners that see what we're doing and have reached out to me and have also asked, hey, how can I do that? And that eventually turns into business, which is really nice. So it's helped a lot with that, just finding unexpected connections. And that's been super, super rewarding.
Appreciate the Angie shout out, the leadership shout out. But I think something we talk about in DEI is the value of representation. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And in this case, right, it's critical to have leaders in role who are self-identifying and willing to share and are open, or showing up as allies. That's equally as important. And I think the exec sponsor role, why it's so critical as well, is not only is the value of representation, and in this case showing the potential ability to eventually get there, it's that firsthand knowledge and being able to learn from them directly. So I'm really glad to hear that.
I can chime in. So for starters, just being on this stage, I've literally never done anything like this in my career. And so being in this role has given me a lot of visibility that I'm still getting used to. That's why I'm doing a lot of hand gestures, because I'm not used to being in front of people so much. But it's just been nice to really push me, honestly, out of my comfort zone where we all grow, to learn how to, be an actual visible leader and not just someone, working more so from behind the scenes. And it's been a really fun journey.
Well, don't sell yourself short as a sourcer and as an important part of the candidate process as a recruiter. You're first in line for future Datadog. So you are on potentially the biggest stage that doesn't get this kind of fanfare recording. So certainly don't sell yourself short.
I will say, we've talked a lot about work and how it helps work, but I'll also, as a parent, I have 2 teenagers. And if any of you have teenagers, you know that it feels like maybe you messed up every part of the way, but at least they try to remind you of that, right? And I think having that community to go to and be like, oh yeah, this is common, this is what they're experiencing, and how you can engage with your kids and be a better parent as well as be better at work. I mean, that's pretty amazing, and I definitely am very thankful for our community and the parents community to be able to provide that support. I think it's great. So
We love that.
Well, even add on that point, the career community is so vibrant and diverse, and I feel like I represent such a small sliver of it, but I feel like my fellow Datadogs represent so much more. And through Rainbow Dogs, I've been able to learn the experiences of all of my peers and connect with them in ways that I've never personally experienced myself. And I think that's been really rewarding. And I've been seeing the ways that they've been able to flourish and find space at Datadog, and I just hope to be a part of that too. So.
Very important part of that. Thanks, Sam. So I want to be conscious of time, and I think that we are also going to try and save time if there are any questions from the audience. But as we kind of wind down this brief chat today, there's no way we can fill all of the cool things that we're doing and the incredible work that this group is doing. And I also want to caveat, we're by no means perfect. We're not saying that, look at us, this is what you should stand yourself up against. We're just doing a little bit of knowledge sharing and hoping you'll join us on this journey and potentially inspire you. I'd love to ask our panelists, what would you say to someone who is interested in this work? Obviously, you had a run-in with someone earlier today, but if someone who's interested in driving this work, improving their own culture at their organization, what would be your advice?
I mean, I think the first thing is like look for similar people with similar interests, right? That want to do the same thing. I think it's always helpful to have someone that in the leadership position that can help sponsor you and figure out like how do you go about doing this in your company. But I think also just making sure there is space, there is a desired or there's a desire from a larger group of people to want to have that and to want to be part of that, right? I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, I think looking for other people like specifically in leadership positions that can help sponsor it and guide you, and then also look outside of your company if it's not there. Like look for other examples outside and see what you might build to mirror, or how you might build to approach it.
And David, you've seen kind of both sides of this. Our community guilds are about 3 years old, and with some tenure, I think, over that, you have seen what Datadog was like, or what any company is like, without having these CGs and kind of seeing the other side of that. So I'm curious, like, what the change you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think one was interesting because some of these things happen naturally. Like we had groups that were already together, and we hadn't formalized it. And I think the interesting thing is that it does show that you can take a group of people that have an interested topic, and with the right support and the right leadership, like you can empower them and let them go through and grow something that is this big now and this impactful. And because when we first started, like there was a parents channel, but it was not nearly as vibrant as it is now. They didn't have the same type of support, and like we were talking, like it was always like people with new kids, and now we have like a lot of new people with teenagers, with kids in different stages of their lives, and being able to have that community, to have that support, to be able to share some of the experiences across the board, that's pretty powerful. But it's grown a lot. I mean, as we've grown as a company too.
Yeah, and we had, I think one of the impetus of starting that channel and that CG is we had one of our first moms, I think, at Datadog, which is super exciting, but it was kind of like, what do we do? How do we support her? What does she need? How can we come together on this? And it's been interesting to kind of see the different life cycles that you've said. And so now this former first-time mom has now had another child, and I think she's kind of working through these other older life cycles. So it's really interesting to see the milestones that community goes through as well, and how they show up for each other there. Open-ended advice for everyone else that you want to share?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
I was just going to say, I think, in these efforts, lead and operate with as much authenticity as you can. That word is so hard for me today. I keep coming back to your story, Mayumi and Sam, but I think it's those just really organic moments of connections that create lasting moments for people. And, be authentic when you're thinking about creating these intentional spaces for those moments. I think that's how people are going to connect, and it's those connections that we're really here for.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I'll keep it short for once, but I always say sustainability is key. Angie, I'll take a line out of her book. She likes to say fewer things done better, and I'm like, I always think about that. But with my work that I do with Women of Datadog, but just in general, you don't want to burn yourself out. Do what works for you, right? If it is, you decide and you want to be a new hire buddy or a mentor, you just want to do a quick hello for 15 minutes to every new person that joins your company, do that. That's how I started at Datadog. That's how I met a lot of people to start. But eventually I'm like, that's very fleeting, right? You meet with them for 15 minutes. It's a big company. It's hard to feel an impact. But always start somewhere. So think about that. It's like going away from this panel, leaving this panel, think about one small thing that you could try and do. And usually that becomes a pattern, and it can lead to much greater, more sustainable things, right?
I just have to build off of that because that's such a great point. I think that it's really not about doing these big extravagant events to really show support for a particular community or a particular group at your workplace. It's about, actively showing in small little ways that you can that they are welcome here, that they have a space, that they have people that they can reach out to. It's the Slack little reply below a happy Pride message, or maybe it's a comment in passing. I think taking one out of Mayumi's book, allyship is a verb, it's not a being. It's constantly taking steps to create a space where you want to be a part of, and you make other people want to be a part of that space too. And I really think that is what grounds me in trying to create an inclusive space. And so sending those small messages and making people feel like they have people around them that are present and that see them is one of the most important things to me.
That's great. And I think that piece that you talked about it doesn't have to be this big moment, right? We're in the middle of Pride Month. We know so many companies, they've changed their logo to have a rainbow. They're probably doing a pride float, all these great things, which is important. And I'm not diminishing that. But at some point, it feels really performative when that kind of culture isn't showing up all the rest of the months and within your four walls. So I think really thinking about the foundations and standing up a community of like belonging and connection is much more valuable than putting money towards something that potentially feels a little more performative or for marketing purposes, which again, I understand the value of, but I think for the purpose of CGs, that's where we really, really want to drive and what we feel like we can control.
Yeah, we've touched upon it a bit. I've been like, let's do a pride float or something like that. Maybe it's like, well, I mean, and it's so important though, because it's like when reframing and thinking about the impact of these things, the other events that we've held that have been smaller and connected to the community have been so much more, in my opinion, meaningful. Don't get me wrong. I love a good like rooftop and I love a good event. But really when it comes towards connecting to the community, it was those small moments that were the reason why I came back.
Yeah.
That's great. So we still have a little bit of time. I'm happy to open up if there's anyone who wants to ask any questions. We can always just keep gabbing too. We love a good chit chat with each other, but I believe there are some mics up. If anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, that was very orchestrated. I like that.
I have a kind of two-part question. So when you're starting an ERG, how do you get people to come out and join the community? Because I feel like I heard some people feel like they need more knowledge on the group, or they feel like they don't belong or something like that. And then, so how do you have any tips on how to get people to come out? And also the second part is because of that, I feel like for my company, we generally have more like fun celebration events as a part of the ERGs. And I feel like to really build a community, we really want to have more or try to have more serious conversations about maybe history or struggles. How do you start having those conversations in those events?
I was going to say, I mean, I think some of the things that, Amber said, like around starting small, I think, Taylor and being authentic about it. I mean, even if it's just saying, hey, I'm going to host something after work that just tries to bring the community together. I mean, that feels like that's a nice, good starting spot. I don't know if we have other examples of maybe that you all used.
Yeah, this year, my co-lead and I have been very intentional about creating informal spaces several times a month to just like you hop on a Zoom, and sometimes we do have serious conversations kind of depending on what's going on in the world, but sometimes it's just like hey, take a quick break during your morning. Have you seen a good movie? Are you listening to good music? And so I think just creating kind of those somewhat optional opportunities for people to just hop in. Sometimes that can be done via a Slack channel, but I think you really have to build upon that. I think it takes a lot of time, and I think in the early days it can feel like, well, there's only 5 of us, is this worth it? But 2 years or 3 years down the line, someone's gonna be very grateful that like you took the time to make that space.
And your group has done a really good job with that. And I think this was a quote either you or Ngala, your co-lead, said, which is, if you show up for your community will show up for you. Mm-hmm. So it's consistently creating those moments. And sometimes you'll feel a little discouraged because you're like, oh, no one really showed up for it. That's a little bit of a bummer. But you did the right thing by creating that space if people needed to. And you learn from that, right? Maybe that wasn't the right timing. Maybe that was during a peak big team meeting or whatever that is. So we constantly try to iterate there. And I think the point that you made about, how do you get people to feel like they belong and they can join? listen, we can't tell people that you fit into this box, so you should go into this CG. We are not one thing. There's so much intersectionality and also how we align and how we show up and what's important to us. I'll tell you myself, I am half Japanese and half Austrian. I fit in neither of those places. I can tell you I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb in either of those. But it's my own personal self-identity of how I was raised and my personal culture and my beliefs that help me align in those spaces and to show up for others, of course. So I think it's, to me, a baseline of it's inclusive to everyone. We do want to have safe spaces or safer spaces for folks to self-identify and be out and be themselves. But at the same time, we want to be open for those who maybe are questioning, maybe want to learn more, maybe have a family member that they want to show up for. And we also want to hold our allies accountable to say, this is what we need for you. This is kind of the education and things that are important to us. And of course, the fun, cool stuff and the happy, fun party times, but also potential obstacles that we're going through, the struggles, the history of what it is. And Juneteenth isn't just a day off for you to have a barbecue. This is a moment in Black Americans' history. So I think I would say open it up as much as possible. Have a few different moments for people to opt into. I call it choose your adventure, and just consistently show up for that community. And don't be discouraged.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. We can do a duet next. So my current company doesn't have any ERGs, but my last company did. And I think one of the larger challenges that we faced there, they were really impactful and important spaces for a lot of different groups. And the groups that constantly were being left out were the people who fit in more than one box, right? Lots of people are both women and Black, or like both Asian American and queer, or any combination of all of the above, right? And I think a lot of those kind of almost micro communities felt very left out and underrepresented and not fully supported in the way that they saw their kind of more singular identity peers getting that support. So I guess my question is just sort of how do you think about that type of intersectionality? How do you combine your ERGs together? And yeah, what do you do to kind of face that?
I can actually directly comment about that because I fit into many different groups too. You'd look at me and go, oh, she does Women of Datadog, but I work with Amped a lot. I talk to a lot of the Rainbow Dogs folks, a lot of the other community guilds to figure out how we can proxy each other to be even more powerful. And so one thing that I worked with Mayumi on, or proposed that we do, is like a panel on intersectionality, and that we did a couple weeks ago, and it was great. There was a lot of awesome, or actually, sorry, no, we're still planning that, but
That was a different panel we
yes,
did.
I'm like mixing up my two panels.
Yeah.
But that is a topic that we recognize is very much in a lot of our Datadog's members' minds. Like, how do I make time for more than one identity with my job being so crazy, or with the fact that these are very siloed in the way that they're formed. But there is also the fact that we just try to be mindful of that. I think intersectionality, what allyship means, these are things that as community guilds we work together to try and define and try and recognize. And so there isn't like a perfect answer, and there isn't like a perfect solution for it, but it's just trying to make sure that when there are times for us to collaborate, that as leads, as members, we come to each other. Like, just to give you an example, we've been talking with BITS about doing a book swap between Women of Datadog and BITS, or with the Parents Guild on our OKRs, and getting back to the OKRs, we're talking about doing like a focus group for new mothers, which would fall into Women of Datadog, but also the Parents Guild. So there's just like those types of efforts where, yes, it's extra work, it's extra things to consider, and granted, at the end of the day, you still might leave out some groups unintentionally. It's just about chipping away and trying to do things better, instead of saying like, oh, I'm going to stay in my lane, you stay in yours, and you know, March is International Women's Day, and it's like, okay, like after that, good luck, you're all on your own. No, we're trying to really proxy each other and try to be more inclusive of multiple identities.
Yeah, I think our groups do a really good job of cross collaboration. I think even just for Pride Month, giving a shout out the connection between Black in Tech and Rainbow Dogs, having kind of a movie night to show Paris is Burning, which is a you know, incredible part of Black queer culture, to make space for that. I know AMPed, which is our Asian, Middle Eastern, Pacific Islander employee base, they are coming together with Somos, which is our Hispanic and Latinx group, to do something on financial wellness, understanding that many of them are, you know, first generation American, first generation, you know, wealth and stocks and, you know, all that fun stuff. And how do they navigate that when they don't have that context or that knowledge from their parents? So really, it's kind of, we consistently bring our groups together to discuss, and of course they're encouraged to meet with each other as well, how they can cross-collaborate. What's something that's important in your group that mirrors something that's important in mine? And it doesn't have to be tied to a specific identity. It can be tied to an experience. And then we always open it for all, because we never want anyone to have to choose who they are or how they show up. So I hope that's helpful. And I'm getting the TikTok notification, so I know we're at time. I really just want to say thank you to everyone, again, for making the time and space for us, for showing up here today, and for asking some really great questions. Thanks so much. And to my amazing panelists, I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Mayumi.
Thank you, Mayumi.